Welcome back to Joy of the Hang Squad, and we have Lauren back with us. Yay!
Hi, Sharon. Thanks for the welcome back. I will admit I'm trying to rally, get all my energy up as I am coming off a 3-day bender in Miami for Davis Rowe's 21st birthday. So me and 4 21-year-olds, which... it's at 53. I certainly don't have the same amount of energy that those 21-year-olds do.
Well, I saw some of the photos, so I'm having a really hard time feeling sorry for you. We had a lot of fun, though, having Davis on the show while you were gone, so I'm glad she was able to co-host.
Me too, and she absolutely loved it. She's looking forward to coming back and co-hosting another time.
Is she?
She is.
Good, but I did miss you. And so today we also have a guest, Misty Carson. Welcome, Misty.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Nice to see you. Misty is passionate about her philanthropic efforts, and that's what we're going to talk to her about today. She has a very interesting story about her upbringing in the Midwest, and just recently moved to Tampa just a few years ago, and now she's here with us to reveal some really important things about her past that brought her to philanthropy and wanting to help other young girls who are having struggles. So we'll just dive right in, and you can tell us a little bit about why you're here.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important that people who come from a non-traditional background are very open and vocal with their communities about the struggles that they've went through, so that other people who have a non-traditional upbringing, for instance, not going to a college straight out of high school and having that experience, can understand that they can still be extremely successful in their lives and provide or change the generational wealth pattern of their family.
I love that. So tell me why that's so important for you.
Absolutely. So I was born to a mom of 15. She and I lived in poverty most of our lives. We lived in a very small trailer park. Back then, when you're going to school, it was very obvious who had money and who did not. If you're not aware, but when you get free lunch, back in the day, they were a particular color lunch ticket, so everyone knew that you came from the wrong side of the tracks, quote or unquote.
That is unbelievable, Misty, that even back then they didn't have enough, wherewithal to think that you should have the same ticket, or you shouldn't make it so obvious that those kids, needed extra help.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy.
It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. I'm glad that they don't do that now. Everyone just has it on their ID card. They're much more cognizant of what that does to somebody's psyche, and also what it does to us as a community as far as segregating us in different ways based on what we have available to us in our bank accounts. Growing up that way, I had a live-in uncle who sexually abused me for many years. And
when did that start for you, sexual abuse?
I was 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and it lasted till I was about 13.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is what it is, and it happened. It was something that I've had lots of therapy about. It happens to 1 in 4 young women. They're sexually assaulted at some point in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really one? Let's think about that a second.
Mm-hmm.
1 out of 4 women are sexually assaulted at some point.
And
that's what's reported.
Right, and it's usually by someone you know.
It is almost always by somebody that you know, a family member or a friend of a family member, a pastor at a church, a teacher at your school. So I grew up in a very impoverished town, very blue collar and very little gray collar. They have very limited mindsets about what's available to you, what's available to them. I also grew up in an era where I was told I could be a secretary or a librarian, but I couldn't be a lawyer or a doctor. There were limitations on what they believed women could do.
How old are you, Misty?
I was just going to ask the same question.
I'm 46.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So based in just what I was around and the mindset of my family, I became very sexually active very young, which is very common for abused young women. And I got pregnant when I was 16 years old. My parents decided I couldn't live there anymore, even though my mom had been a teen mom. So a guidance counselor at my school, mind you, through all of this, I was number 2 in my class. I was very blessed that way, that God gave me a high level of intelligence. I did really well in school. I cared a lot about school. It was an escape from me. So she helped me get emancipated, took my parents to court, got custody of myself, got my own apartment when I was 16.
You were told you couldn't live there anymore because you got pregnant?
Correct. They couldn't handle me and
a child.
A child coming in.
Were you an only child?
I was not. So I had a younger sister who lived with me, who was the biological child of my adopted father and my mom. So interestingly enough, when I was 12 years old, I found out through looking through pictures at my grandma's house, I was sitting on the lap of some man I didn't recognize, and she said, "That's your dad." And I was like, "No, it's not." I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen pictures of my dad, and that is definitely not him. And she said, "They haven't told you."
Oh, wow. And that's how you found out?
That is how I found out. Yes.
Did your parents know about the sexual abuse while it was happening?
I don't know if they knew while it was happening. I know that there were markers. I remember my grandma telling my dad, and I started writing just a memoir, and I put this in my memoir, that I remembered very clearly my grandma saying that when I was sitting on my uncle's lap, that there was some sort of a sexual feeling or tension between us.
Between the two of you.
Yeah, and it made her uncomfortable. And no one ever addressed it. I remember thinking in my mind, oh my God, somebody's gonna actually do something about this. And interestingly enough, when I finally got up the courage to tell my family, they told me I couldn't tell anybody because he couldn't let his brother go to jail because he had his whole life ahead of them, that this was something that we just needed to keep in our family and keep under wraps. So
did it stop though after you told them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. By then he had moved out and he was gone. The older I got, quite frankly, I don't think he was attracted to me anymore because once you're past your prepubescent stage, I don't know if you know this, but offenders have particular profiles of people that they like. So once you start to look more mature, it kind of loses its luster.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. How old was he?
He was only 6 years older than me. So he was a middle teenager when it had started and then a young adult. It was crazy. I actually remember him dating a girl in my junior high and telling our family that she was in high school. And I knew that that was a lie because she walked down the hallways of the same school as me.
And did you ever, when you left and were emancipated, did you ever follow up to see where he was, to maybe confront him, or, only for your own sake, if not to file, charges or what have you? Did you ever follow up on where he ended up?
I knew where he was
and
where he was. We're from a small town, so everybody knew where everybody was all the time. I didn't actually have an opportunity to confront him until I was in my late 20s. So my grandpa, his father, was passing away, and we all drove to Arizona. They had moved out there. He had moved out there as an adult, and he took me outside. Now, mind you, most of my family never believed me that this had happened. He took me outside in that moment and apologized to me for everything that he had done and any effect it may have had on my life from that point forward. My answer to him was, "You don't have that kind of power over me," which was, of course, untrue, but I didn't want him to have that gratification in the moment. I felt like he was looking to abuse me in another way in that moment to get some gratification out of it. After that, of course, my family was extremely apologetic because he admitted it. But after that, I just ignore that he exists in this world.
So your grandmother tells you that you were adopted. Mm-hmm. Did you go home that day and say, what the hell is going on?
I ran straight home. My grandma lived in the trailer diagonal from us.
Yeah.
And I ran straight home and I was like, "What? Are you my dad or are you not my dad?" What? And shock on their face. And they're like, "Well, we never intended to tell you, but yes, I adopted you." Then I find out that my biological father lived across the street from us with my other brother and sister. And I had played with them when I was younger.
Thinking they were friends.
Thinking they were friends.
Wow.
And, the whole time he had watched me
grow up.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was absolutely crazy.
So did you guys reconnect?
Yeah, so I started asking questions
Right.
about how all of that was and how did it happen.
And how old are you now, like at that age?
I was about 12 years old.
Okay, so now you're 12. So you've been sexually abused for 4 years at this point.
Yes.
You're now 12. You
Yes.
find out you're adopted.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and my house was very tumultuous. So my adopted dad had extreme anger issues. So when he would get angry, a lot of broken things, a lot of punching, a lot of headbutting, it was very volatile. My household was very volatile. And we didn't have money for things. So at 12, I had started working. I paid for my own food. I bought my own clothes. I paid for my own sports that I wanted to be involved in. Those were not luxuries of things that I could have. So I really started taking care of myself in a lot of ways. Got myself back and forth to school, got my sister back and forth to school. So had that conversation with my parents, started asking my mom about my biological father. Where does he work? What does that sound like? Found out every day I walked to school, I passed where he had worked. I saw him in the mirror every day. So one day, got up the courage to send my best friend in and say, do you know, my maiden name's Bierschbach, do you know Misty Bierschbach? He starts sobbing. I see him hug my friend. She points to me outside. He came outside to introduce himself, which was very strange. So he showed up at my school. He was bawling. They got me out of class, which is so inappropriate. They should have never allowed some man who's not on my card to see me, but they did. And that felt so awkward to me. I didn't know this man, and I'd already been abused by men. So I was like, why are you? It was just a very interesting dynamic. Fast forward 4 years, about the time I got pregnant, my mom had an affair with my biological father. And
Yeah. Oh, wow. You could have a mini series.
Yeah.
Right.
People tell me this all the time.
I mean, our lives are very similar. I'm feeling a lot of empathy because our childhoods was very, very similar. I think that's why we connected when I met you.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm listening to your story going,
I want to just take
Yeah.
a moment and acknowledge you and say that
Yeah.
I'm sorry that
Thanks.
you had to go through that too, because
Yeah.
it is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find other people who can relate because it's just it is a movie, right?
I
It's
know.
so far outside the realm of reality for most people.
Right.
And every family has trauma, but most have one or two. They don't have this stack or
Nothing
pile of
like this, Misty. And
Yeah.
what I find myself thinking, and what's an important question for me, and I would think any of our listeners might be curious about as well. But when I listened to everything you went through, and then you mentioned how you got a job and got yourself what you needed, the sports stuff, you helped your sister, and everything you'd been through. And I'm curious how you found the strength to not wallow in self-pity, which would be the normal thing to do, what I would expect when I know so many people who have gone through tough things such as, losing a job, maybe getting divorced, having a spouse that's sick, which isn't nearly as all put together traumatic as everything you experienced. How do you have the mindset to not wallow in what's been done to you and self-pity and dig yourself out? Where do you get the strength to do that?
I think it's a couple of things for me. Actually, I know it's a couple of things for me. The first one is my grandma that I mentioned, who had showed the picture, had always told me ever since I was young how valuable and precious I was and how loved I was by God. And even though, and you can believe in those things or not believe in those things, having the thought when you're young that something bigger than you loves and cares for you, regardless of your circumstance, I think is extremely important. And then I had a guidance counselor at school who was so supportive of me, explaining to me that everything I went through, while unfortunate, didn't have to be the story.
Didn't have to define you.
Yes. I knew deep inside me, God gave me something telling me that if you want a different life, you have to make better choices. So everything that you're learning and everything you're seeing is wrong. Whatever they tell you, do the opposite. Like, just fight for opportunity, which is why I'm so philanthropic today, because I don't believe that every person, to your point, Lauren, who goes through these things inherently understands that you do not have to sit or lie in those things. You can use them. You can turn your pain into purpose. And I think it's really important that somebody shepherds you in the direction that looks like.
Well, absolutely. And the fact that you were lucky enough to have your grandmother and that guidance counselor, and the thought to me that there are people who have no one that says that. I mean, to go on a slight tangent here, one of my favorite movies and books is The Help. And one of my favorite scenes in it, which I repeat in my head all the time, which just has such significance to me and what we're talking about, is when the woman who, I forget the name of her character, but who is the nanny, and she says the little girl who's being abused by her mom, and she makes her repeat, "You is smart, you is important,
you are beautiful.
You is beautiful." And she makes her repeat it. And it's, you need to have, right? You need to have someone telling you that you are these wonderful things and you're not the sum of the bad things that you've done or that have happened to you. And the thought that so many people in this world don't have that is remarkable. So yeah, I want to hear more about your philanthropy and, how you got started on that, how those of us who aren't started in it can get started in it.
Well, tell me how you thought to become emancipated, though. I mean, that was a huge, right?
So
not everyone thinks.
So my parents had kicked me out anyways.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out where I was going to live and how I was going to do it. Without legally being emancipated, you can't sign a lease on an apartment. I had mentioned prior that I was already working, so I was very good at saving money. I bought my car. I bargained with a neighbor for my car, paid payments for like 10 weeks with I still have it, this handwritten agreement with him.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
my guidance counselor knew that I was smart, articulate, focused, that I wasn't into drugs, I wasn't doing the wrong things, I wasn't stealing, and she helped me file for emancipation, go to court, help me find a landlord who would still rent me because there was still some bias around that. I got a little 2-bedroom apartment. I had this old Ford pickup truck above old retired teacher's apartment, and I drove myself back and forth to school. I delivered my first daughter in the summer. So after that year, I did get my GED, which I'm proud to say I now have a master's degree, which took me a long time to figure out. I did get married 20 days for my 17th birthday, which of course did not work.
Right.
But he's the father of my first 2 children, had another child 15 months after, which I was devastated about. Happy now. Love my son, but just a lot to go through. If I wouldn't have had her support, I honestly don't know where I would have ended up.
The guidance counselor.
Yes.
Isn't that important? I mean,
I had a teacher, Mr. Moses, same kind of thing. He helped me fill out all my college applications. I didn't get emancipated, but I left the house at 17 because it was same thing. There was so much turmoil in the house that I was like, I need to get out. And I grew up in a small town in Maine, so very similar, living in a trailer for most of my life. So yeah, same thing. Mr. Moses saw something in me, and I graduated as a junior. I didn't go my senior year and got into Northeastern, thankfully. So I took a different path. I didn't get pregnant, but sexually active young, all of that. So very similar story. But yeah.
It's interesting what you say, Sharon, and it's like on my heart to say this right now. I feel like there's always someone who's there and willing to be in your corner and root for you. And there's always a lifeline thrown to you in this life, regardless of what you're going through. Some people aren't open enough to see it,
right,
to hear it,
yeah,
or they're too prideful to accept it. I really feel if we would just open ourselves up to allow that person into our life, there would be a lot, still painful, but at least a trajectory moving you in the direction of where you want to be instead of where your circumstances are driving you.
Right. I think we were both fortunate that you and I are both intelligent young women and didn't get wrapped up in drugs. And that culture that we could, absolutely, it was all around.
Same.
So, I think that we're just fortunate that we were able to, and I started working like same as you. When I was 11, my grandparents owned a restaurant, and I started working, making my own money, buying my own clothes, doing all that. So your story is really resonating with me. So I
feel like we're soul sisters.
I do too. I do too. So we made it out. So look at us. Look at us now. Look at us now.
And I agree what you say about the prideful people who aren't able to reach out for help, which is just so sad. And I'm intrigued by the fact you mentioned that there's always a lifeline and being able to see the lifeline. And for anyone who's, listening and struggling to find a lifeline, is there any insight you have to that when
That's a
you're
great question.
struggling with something, to find that lifeline? How?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So for me, and I have ignored this several times in my life, to be quite frank, there's always a whisper in the back of your mind. There's this soft voice internally that's telling you that you should do something particular, and you fight it and fight it and fight it. For whether it's fear, whether it's bias, whether it's prejudice, whether it's pride, it doesn't really matter where that comes from. For me, you can start as simple as a podcast. Do you know how much I've changed my mindset just from listening to podcasts? Like the life school coach, she's amazing. She talks about how your thoughts control your feelings, and your feelings control your actions, and then your actions control your consequences.
Yeah, or Mel Robbins.
Or Mel Robbins.
That whole 5-second thing, count to 5 and get the fuck up.
Yes, I love
do whatever
Mel
it
Robbins.
is to make it happen. I love her.
Yeah, 1,000%. You can find it in books. You can find it in church. You can find it from a neighbor. If you look hard enough, there's always someone who's constantly tapping on your window, trying to offer you something. And it could be as simple as, do you want to have dinner on Friday night? Because they know you don't have food in your house. But most of us would be like, no, and then you don't eat.
Right.
You never know where those quiet moments lead you to.
Right.
Well, and to that note, I always like to tell my friends or anyone who asks, who doesn't realize what they should do when they're looking to help someone, I say, you need to not put it on the other person. You need to make it a point to do it yourself. And I'll give a very clear and concise example. Mm-hmm. It's like when a friend of yours is diagnosed with cancer. You don't say, oh, let me know if there's something I can do to help you. Okay, so you want the friend when they're throwing up, vomiting from having their chemo, mm-hmm. to reach out to you and say, mm-hmm. hey, Misty, it'd be great if you could bring me dinner tonight. Mm-hmm. No, when you really think that a friend needs help because they're going through a divorce or they've had a hysterectomy or they have, cancer, you say to them, mm-hmm. look, don't plan dinner for Tuesday and Wednesday night. I'm going to bring dinner over mm-hmm. Tuesday, Wednesday night, or don't make plans Thursday. I want to take you out, mm-hmm. or buy some books, leave them at their house.
Or I just want to come sit with you for an hour.
Come sit with you. But
that's what I need.
I think people need to learn to proactively reach out. And if I can quickly say that Sharon and I have talked about, we so hope with our podcast mm-hmm. that we help, listeners feel like they have a lifeline, or we bring someone on like you who makes them realize that they're not alone in their story, mm-hmm. or they can reach out to us because we want to be that mm-hmm. lifeline. Mm-hmm. We want to do anything we can mm-hmm. to reach as many people as possible, to be a shoulder to lean on, mm-hmm. a lifeline, someone who, we're not experts in anything, mm-hmm. but we like to bring people who are experts like you in their own story.
I appreciate that. I think that's a really good point. Instead of asking, just do. So you had asked me a little bit earlier before we started the podcast, like, how do people get involved? How do they help? Because not everybody has extra thousands of dollars laying around to go to these massive galas that cost $1,500 a ticket and buy the dress and do all the things and then get the driver there and get a sitter for their kids so they can even go. Like, it becomes very cost prohibitive. Yeah, even just to show up. So I tell people all the time, you can give time, talent, or treasure. So if you don't have, and treasure doesn't have to just be money. Say you're going through your closet and you have clothes you haven't worn for a while. There are a lot of young women or women my age and even older who are trying to enter into the world or upgrade their career trajectory, and they don't have the clothes necessary to even go on those types of interviews. Give them to a career closet. Donate them down the street. Put them for free on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, that's a way that you can help your neighbors.
That's actually great, the free on the Marketplace, because I've always thought that when I'm, sending stuff to Goodwill like I normally do. And, I always feel guilty about it because Goodwill is for a profit.
Yes.
And I always wish somehow I could give it to someone who, and my clothes are not business oriented, but maybe there's someone who, and I'm being serious, I'm not trying to be funny or belittle it, but maybe there are some young women out there or older woman who loves fashion and wants to feel good about herself. So she could use something, from my closet, and I'll have to look into where I could donate it besides Goodwill for free that wouldn't embarrass someone having to come get it or there must be something.
There's so many things you can do. Speaking of that, a lot of those women and men, but I specifically focus women, philanthropic efforts for women and at-risk young women. But they also need career counseling. They need interview questions. They need to understand how to appropriately show up in an interview, how to answer for their circumstance, how to get them interested, how to create a resume, how to fill out an application, to follow the algorithm, how can they put themselves online to make themselves more marketable. Those are all skills that many women like us have that we could share for free to women who need them. And for me, I'm all about not those big brands like American Heart Association, or they get all of the money from everybody. They have these huge commercials, this massive platform. The things I'm involved in help specifically people in our community. So Pace Center for Girls, Hillsborough County, I'm so passionate about that. They're young women ages 11 to 17 who are going through similar traumas to what we've experienced, Sharon, along that vein. And they are provided not only education, but also counseling. They have a food pantry. Their program operates very much like in AA, where they start to acknowledge their circumstance and start to grow through all of those things until they have grace for who they are. They learn how to advocate for themselves, how to advocate for each other, how to articulate their passion and their desire well. They're given all kinds of opportunities to learn different trades or skills that they can do because it's difficult for many of them to end up on a college path. So they're just provided all these opportunities. They have a career closet, career fairs. We started a wellness program for them so I can understand how to eat appropriately, what food is, what's good food, how do you take care of your body. It's super important to me. That particular one is like my passion.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You're also the founding co-chair of the Florida chapter of the Insurance Industry Charitable Foundation.
Yes.
What legacy were you hoping to create with that?
Yes. So I'm super excited about this.
Okay.
So my best friend Maggie, who I talked about a little bit earlier, Maggie Potter and I, we both are on the board for the Pace Center for Girls. We met each other at the Associated Professional Insurance Women. She heard my story and she was like, you're perfect for this. So we were looking for other ways that we can feed money back into our community. Because as I said before we started the podcast, Lauren, opportunity costs money. It's just the reality.
It is.
So you can foo-foo on me all you want, but it's true. So you have to open doors. It costs money to drive them to the places that they go. You have to feed them on the way. Like everything costs money. So we found the Insurance Industry Charitable Foundation, been in business 30 years, on LinkedIn. I reached out to the CEO. The CEO said, no, we don't have a chapter in Florida. So we are going to focus on homelessness, which will include hurricane relief, because a lot of people are displaced from their homes, especially in Florida. That's unique to us and other cat-exposed states. It's my little insurance jargon there for you. And we're going to veterans, which is extremely important. A lot of them struggle with the same things, and then at-risk youth. So we're going to launch officially January. Our big event, our gala that we're offering, will be the following year. Our very first volunteer that we're going to be doing is a meal pack. We're going to get together, spend our time packing meals, 20,000 of them, to give to the homeless. We're doing that in October. So doesn't cost anything, but every charity that we support is going to feed back into our Florida and Tampa Bay community.
That's local here. You'll be doing that event in October to pack the meals?
The meal pack will be in October.
In Tampa, though, right?
In Tampa, yes.
We can go to Tampa,
We
Sharon.
could totally go to Tampa.
I would love for you guys to come.
I'll come,
We need 60 to 80 volunteers. Won't cost you a thing, just your time. And then we'll be donating them. I'm hoping to partner with the Junior League and give them to some of the foster care kids that they have. So we're trying to decide where it's going still. We haven't picked a place for it to go, but that'll be our first event. And I will definitely give you both tickets to our big gala. So that you guys
I love the local thing too, because it makes it so obvious, and not that it should be about instant gratification, but seeing where your time, your effort, your money is going, because a lot of people in the world have been scarred by giving money to some charitable organization that they find out lines the pockets of the CEO or the person running the charity. And so I think it's important for people to realize that literally by doing something small, going, packing meals, or even giving $50 or $25 can immediately go right to, something local in the community.
It's so interesting to me. People don't, so think about a child who are in the foster care system. A lot of people do not understand this, but when a child is taken or plucked from their home in that moment, they're taken with nothing. They get none of their toys, none of their clothes, no food. So there are literally charities and nonprofits out there who pack backpacks that are then given to these kids so that they can have their own set of clothes, their own set of toiletries, a backpack, books that they can read. So they have things that belong to them. They're not only being stripped from what they've known, trauma or no trauma, you know that being taken from the only thing you've ever known is extremely excruciating, but they have nothing that is theirs. Those things are so simplistic. We're talking a little bit, Lauren, again, previously. I think it's important to find something you're passionate about. It needs to fill your cup too. And we were just talking about how a lot of people think philanthropy should just be give, give, give. But in my opinion, there is some symbiotic relationship there. It's important that you pick things that are not only going to create ripple effects in the community that do good for the people that you're serving, but it needs to fill you up too. It needs to fill your cup, because if it doesn't, you're not going to continue doing it. And we really need the continuation and consistency of giving back to our community to make, in effect, lasting change.
Right, and that's why I like to say that sometimes being selfish can be the most selfless thing that you do. I mean, you could equate it to, we just had, you have Mother's Day every year, and, you're no good for anybody if you're not taking care of yourself. So I think that's a really good point, to find something that fills you up as well. And that's a positive, that you'll continue to do it and all these people will reap the benefit from what you're doing. But I kind of like that saying, that sometimes being selfish is the most selfless thing you can do.
I like that also.
Right?
Yeah. I have a question. I'm still going back to your childhood and the trauma you went through. What kind of advice? I know for me personally, for example, when I still have inside of me that I'm not worthy or I'm not enough, right? Because I still feel that, like, that little girl, that inner child that we all have is still kind of struggling to not have imposter syndrome and feel like I deserve to be where I'm at. I deserve to have the things I have. Like, we talk about thrifting a lot. Like, I think I thrift a lot because, I don't know, like, it makes me sick to think I'm going to spend a ton of money at Saks Fifth Avenue when I can find it on Poshmark for a fraction of the cost. Like, I don't know. And I don't know if that's because of my childhood or because I just really love the hunt. But do you have those same, like, what kind of advice would you give someone who's younger and still struggling with those thoughts in their heads and that negative voice in their head?
First, Sharon, I want to say how much I appreciate this question. I cannot believe how similar we are. I also Poshmark, and I also buy most of my designer clothes from Uptown Cheapskate, because I also will vomit on the floor if I spend $198 on a Lily Pulitzer skirt. I will stinking die. That does not compute in my brain. I buy everything, buy one, get one free. I have a hard time throwing away food. It makes me feel disgusting. I struggle with imposter syndrome all the time. Even coming here, I'm like, oh my God, what value am I going to bring? Like,
thank you for your honesty with that.
Yes. Yeah. All the time. Yeah. Interestingly enough, I tell myself that those thoughts are a lie constantly, that it's in my head, that everybody experiences what I'm experiencing. I don't know if you've read the book Worthy by Jamie Lee Kerna. I might have her name backwards. I always transpose her middle and her last name. But she wrote a book called Worthy. And it's literally a book about the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. And she wrote the first to turn my pain into a purpose. She writes this amazing poem called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. And every time I'm freaking out and I'm in my head about whatever it is, I read that poem. And it reminds me that it's okay for me to be feeling scared. It's okay for me to be wondering, am I going to make it? Do I deserve to be here? Because most of the time, I honestly don't think I do. But I show up anyways. So just being able to push yourself past that fear and showing up and doing the work, taking compliments, allowing people to give you opportunity. The truth of the matter is, no one knows what the fuck they're doing. I think it's really important.
I totally agree with that.
Yes. So as long as you understand that everyone else is feeling the same internal struggles as you, it's just, are you willing to take a step forward and do it or not? And you have to coach yourself into that all the time.
Yeah. I
was listening to a podcast, Mel Robbins actually, on the way here, about having confidence, being motivated, all those things. So it never goes away.
And don't you find that to be, I feel like that's more a stereotypical female trait, to feel sort of not worthy, less than, get in your head. And so I have to bring up, because I'm curious what you would have to say about this topic, Misty, that Sharon and I talk a lot about the fact that that's the way it is for women, and yet women are constantly and consistently complaining about men. And I feel like women can be and are far crueler to one another than men are to women. You know, instead of raising each other up and being there for support, they're catty and they like to put other women down and gossip about them. What the hell? Like, why? What is that? And are we ever going to be able to change that?
My hope is yes. And I completely agree with everything that you're saying. I talked to my girlfriends about this as well. I think we have been told as a society that there is only so much space for women to be successful. It's unlimited for men, right? Because statistically, men will apply for a job if they only have about 50% of the qualifications, while a woman has to have 90 to 95% before she'll feel comfortable applying. A lot of it is us listening to the chatter and all of the misinformation that we've been fed as we've grown, that there isn't a place for us at the table. So many women are concerned that the table's only 6 feet long, and if there's only space for one, it has to be me. So to do that, we unfortunately grab each other by the ankles and rip each other down the ladder.
That is a fucking great answer. And it makes me think it's probably the same thing with finding the ideal man. There are only so many good men out there that are husband material. So let's compete against all the other, women and make them out to be, someone that we have to be in battle against to get attention from the men. That's a great answer.
Yeah, in reality, if we all learn to be amazing carpenters and we learn how to all take skills together, we can together make the table longer and make space for all of us.
I love that.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. And that's so true. That is so true. When you surround yourself with other women that want to build each other up, it's amazing. You're right.
The power is it's incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's so great. Yeah. So how did you end up getting your master's degree from your GED? So you drop out of high school.
Yes.
At 16.
Yep.
You're a mom.
Yep. Got my GED.
That had to be scary, by the way. I mean...
Yeah, finished my junior year. Got my GED when I was supposed to be a senior, so a year earlier. And this is not something that a lot of people know, so I'm sharing this with many people who know me well and don't know this part of my story, because it's embarrassing, to your point, Lauren. And I am tired of hiding behind any little bit or iota of what I've been through, because you can do things.
And my point was not that it was embarrassing, but the
course.
fact that the importance of putting
Telling
it
your
out there,
story.
telling your story.
So other people can tell theirs.
Absolutely.
And not feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
1,000%. So I went back and forth to college for years. I did not finish my associate's degree until I was 32 years old. I had so many credits. I was just like, because I was raising my kids by myself and doing all these things and trying to work multiple jobs and, making sure that I could pay my bills and do all of that. I remember sobbing and sobbing and sobbing when I was able to walk and get my associate's degree that I finally finished at 32. By 34, I had my bachelor's degree, and by 36, I had my master's degree.
Why was it so important to you to get that education?
First, I think it's important to be a lifelong learner. Even though my master's degree doesn't translate specifically to what I do, it taught me how to critically think. And I thought that was more important. But the real reason that I went back to school and finished my degree is because I wanted to show my kids that no matter what choices you made that led you down a path that, although may be more difficult, you can always course correct and come back. It's not an age-banded thing. It's not an age-specific thing. You will never be done writing your story, and some people just get to the fun chapters quicker.
And to elaborate on that as well, which I always like to tell my kids, because I like how you said it was important for you for your kids to have that lesson. I've said to my kids from day one, you don't get older or become a mom, a parent, and suddenly stop making mistakes. Mm-hmm. You make mistakes your whole life. You just hope to learn from them, not repeat the same mistakes, and move in a different direction. Because what a horrible thought that would be, that you can't come back from something. I mean, I'm all about second chances. And, I think that, we're sort of getting better about that in America with letting people have a second chance, whether it's, anything, going to jail for a drunk driving accident, like doing drugs, I don't even know. There are a plethora of things, but just that we all deserve to be able to reroute in a different direction.
Yeah, give each other grace for sure.
Yeah,
I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, all the things you do right, you learn nothing from. You only learn and grow when you fuck a little shit up. You gotta mess it up so that you can look at the mess you made and learn how to make better choices.
How old are your children now?
My oldest is 28.
Okay.
My daughter, my son is 27, and my youngest will be 16 tomorrow. And I have 2 grandkids as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Love them.
crazy.
They're adorable.
Wow.
you don't look like a grandma.
No.
Everybody tells me that.
What do they call you?
They call me Oma because
I was just going to ask that
I will
too.
punch everybody in the face if they call me grandma. Yes.
Oh my.
Yes.
Beautiful. So is their dad still in their lives, your kids?
So
they're adults now.
Yeah, they're adults now, and he is involved in their lives as an adult. He, like many other people from our generation, have grown into this quiet beauty that didn't exist when they were younger. I give a lot of grace for people who grew up in really small towns. There's not a lot of diversity of thought. And so everyone...
Well said.
Yes, so everyone just believes that life is a particular way, and it's almost like the Truman Show. Like, you can't go beyond the border. They're all either too afraid, or if you do go for it, you're too fancy, or you want too much, or who are you to think that you can have that? I've heard all of those things from the people from my hometown. And who are they to tell me that I cannot have that? My one and only goal before I leave this earth is to leave my children wealth, because I never want anyone from this generation forward to live the life that I lived. I want to make an impact for other young women, giving them opportunities to change their wealth patterns. We never know who we touch. One of those young women that we're supporting could cure cancer. You just never know what the ripple effect is 5 layers down the road.
I love that statement, completely agree. And whereas I certainly need to do more on the charity side of things, I have always and in some very precarious situations with doctors, as I deal with gastro issues, bathroom issues, gynecological issues, I have always been the person to let all and any of the residents in to look and ask questions, because I think I'm doing my part. This person, will be a doctor and they might save one of my kids, kids' lives or save my future, like, son-in-law's life or 100%. What have you. I just figure that's the little thing I can do that if I have to be embarrassed by, sitting on a toilet and having 3 interns look at me, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I think that, it's important to just
I love that.
Do that.
I've never given it that much thought, actually, but that's true.
It is very, very true.
It's right?
100%.
Yeah. There's a total ripple effect when you...
I'm usually just so drugged up. I'm like, whatever. Bring it on. I don't really care.
That's awesome. It's so funny. When I was raising my kids, speaking of the ripple effect, when I was raising my kids, I used to tell them that every choice was like throwing a pebble into the pond. So if you make a good choice, the ripples of that choice are positive. If you make a bad choice, those ripples are negative, and you never fully can comprehend how far those ripples go. So it's super important to always be cognizant that it's not the immediate reaction or effect that you get from a choice, that there are layers and layers of how the world changes based on the choices that you're making.
And that's something that's really, really hard to grasp when you're young. I mean, I know I didn't really grasp that when I was young, and I have mentioned multiple times my age. I'm 53. Sometimes I feel like maybe I just grasped that at 49. It's in the moment. You're so set on sort of thinking of the immediate consequence. It's hard to think, okay, well, if I do this, then maybe that, then that, then that, then that. But it's really important to think that way.
Yeah.
I love that example with the ripples of the, throwing a stone in the water.
They absolutely cannot grasp it because their brain isn't even wired yet, right?
Yeah.
The presidential portion of their brain's not fully developed. They can't understand the concept. But what it does do is it creates this memory in their mind and this repetition of me saying it. So as they start to grow into their maturity, they can grasp onto that concept and start to see markers, and that really changes how quickly they can mature and the way they respond to the outside consequences that are happening to them.
Well, the interesting thing, though, our past doesn't have to predict our future.
1,000%.
But that being said, I will also say that I'm going to speak for myself, not for you, having the past that I had, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily want to change it because it made me so much stronger, and it made me who I am today. And it made me, I think sometimes it's like, how a diamond's made, right? Rocks are just the pressure of the rock creates the diamond. And I think sometimes when you have struggles early in life, I kind of was like, people would always tell me, you're going to fail. You're never going to make it through college. You're not, smart enough. I went to a big city after I left a small town. You're going to hate it there. All these reasons why I was going to fail. And the whole thing was, fuck you, watch me.
100%.
Fuck you, watch me.
Love that.
And that's so if I hadn't had those struggles and it didn't create this sense of urgency of, I need to get the hell out of here and make something different out of my life. I think if I hadn't had that, I don't know that I would have left. So that created the opportunity for me to have more because I'm like, I want more than this. This isn't enough. It can't be all there is.
And to your point, Misty, of having, wealth for your kids so they don't have to go through what you went through. And I think of Sharon with, her past and what she just said. And she has a daughter about to graduate from Harvard.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. I love what you said. I tell people that all the time. Everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry for you that happened to you. Like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually not.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry at all. Was it hard? Hell, yes, it was very hard. I am exactly who I am in this moment because of every single thing that I have been through, and I love who I am.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, I love it. I love giving back. I don't want my kids to go through that. So maybe they're not as strong as I am. Maybe they're not as resilient as I am, which I tell everybody, if I could explain myself in one word, it's resilient.
I think you can raise them to be as strong as you are, and as resilient as you are, without having them have to go through the trauma.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Having real, honest conversations, never hiding who I am or what I've been through, making sure that they're grateful for everything that I've created for them now.
Right. Well, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, one of the things Haley comes up against, and maybe your daughter did too. She also has a daughter that went to Harvard, so I can brag on her too.
Love it.
But I think one of the things she comes up against is she goes to school now with a lot of people that have parents who are alums or legacy kid, they called legacy kids, or kids that went to prep school. We didn't she went through public school. She understood early that if she was going to go to any kind of Ivy, she had to do the work. I wasn't going to come home at the end of the, I wasn't going to do her homework for her. I always used to say to my kids, I learned it. Now you have to learn it.
100%.
It's up to you. I am not going to I'll guide you if you need to be guided. You have to do the work. And, she's gone through school and she's done the work. So that's what I'm proud of. And she didn't have to go through the trauma she had, other than a divorce that I went through. She did. That's obviously stressful on kids. But there was not any trauma like you and I struggled with. There was never any need, right? She didn't want for anything. But that being said, she also didn't have the advantages that a lot of her classmates have. So
it's going to serve her well in the future.
Yeah.
Comparison is the killer of all dreams. It really, really is.
And we compare ourselves to everybody even now, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like,
Well, we talk about it. So again, to the point you and I made earlier about there being a lot of comfort and freeing and being open and honest about things. Sharon and I talk about that with one another, how you shouldn't, but as you age and you care how you look, it's easy to look at someone else and think, oh, well, look how great she looks. She has the perfect body or has this, it's, so if you put it out there and acknowledge the fact that you do it, I think it is helpful.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We're surrounded by the constant pressure, and we talked about this a little bit too, to look as good as we can for as long as we possibly can. Where I think the older you get, there's more pressure to look better and younger than you do even at a younger age.
For women.
Definitely not for men. It's the opposite, and we talked about that. Men are celebrated for their maturity, and women are really not, right? We're expected to do everything we can to, and like I said earlier, I get Botox, I have gotten filler, I
do too, but you're open about it, I'm open about it, Sharon's open about it. I have to admit, it infuriates me when I watch some clip on the TV or read something in a magazine and they talk about all of these, celebrities, the, Demi Moore and, who's the redhead that was married to Tom Cruise? Why am I going blank?
Nicole Kidman.
And they do look fabulous, but at least be honest about all the hundreds of thousands of dollars they are spending on treatments and trainers to look the way they do. Just be honest.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, if I'm thinking about that from my perspective, and I would encourage other women to think about it this way too, the fact that they're not open and vulnerable about what they've went through should tell you that they're extremely uncomfortable on the inside and they feel even less good about who they are than you do in that moment. Anybody who's willing to stand up and say, this is what I do to conform or to look like, feels so much less pressure and so much more relief about just being true and authentic to who you are. So yeah, they may look great, but inside they're dying. And think about that for a moment when you're feeling jealous about those women.
Interesting point, because I like how you mentioned that it is authentic if you can talk about it, because I do feel like I am true to who I am and authentic, but I've had, my boobs done and I do Botox and I get facials and I do lasers. And I think that you can do that and still be confident and comfortable who you are and authentic.
100%.
Yeah.
It's okay to want to look your best.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Because at the same note,
No.
I don't judge women who choose not to do it. Neither my twin sister or my 18-month older sister have ever partaken in anything in the industry. They don't even do facials. And I don't think that they're less than I am because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree with you. I think it's important that we're just happy with who we are and the choices that we're making, and that we remember that everybody has struggles, right? They may be different, but we're all struggling with something all the time. So if you just focus on you and what you can put out into the world and let everything else, your only competition should be yourself. Am I better today than I was yesterday? When you look in the mirror, are you comfortable in your own skin with how you show up in the world and what you're putting out in the world? And that's it. If you can have that, you're being exactly who you're meant to be.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the word gratitude earlier, and that's one thing that's really helped me sort of deal with certain aspects of my life, comparing myself to other people, or worry that my uterine cancer, which was early, will come back, is focusing, every day on things that I'm thankful for, because like everyone says, comparison is like instant death.
Yes.
It's like an instant pathway to being unhappy forever. So I try really hard to, get up and think, okay, I am so thankful I have an unbelievable, spouse and a wonderful marriage, and I have 3 happy, healthy kids who are thriving. So I try and get up every day and do that, because it's so much better than focusing on what you don't have or comparing yourself to other people. But it's hard. I mean, I live a really nice life and don't want for anything. And I want to smack myself sometimes when I see, someone have something and I'm envious, or, and I want to smack myself and think, that's so ridiculous. Like, you're so lucky, you shouldn't be wanting to have something more than you have.
Well, give yourself a pat on the back for even recognizing that you feel uncomfortable feeling that way. And remember, too, the person you're envious of is envious of you or someone else for different reasons.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is true. I do want to tell our listeners how they can get involved in your Packing Your Meals event that's coming up in October, you said?
Yeah, come join
Tampa.
Sharon and me in Tampa in October.
Let's pack some meals.
Let's pack some meals.
Is there a way, do you have a website or a way that they can reach you?
So they haven't launched our website yet. We're just doing a press release. Actually, TBBW was awesome. Bridget Bellows putting out a release for us and a whole article in June's issue, which would be great. I don't have a lot of social media. I'm just learning how to use Instagram, which is why I'm like working on it. My daughter's teaching me. But I am on LinkedIn. So if you look up Misty Carson, Tampa area in LinkedIn, you'll see all sorts of stuff. If you just message me, I can send you all the information that you would need, or they can email me at mistycarson1@outlook.com.
Awesome. That's
Perfect.
great. Yeah, that'll be great. All right, before we let you go, I warned you at the very beginning. We ask every guest what advice you'd give your younger self. So what would you tell younger Misty?
I would tell younger Misty that to keep pushing and keep doing what feels right in your soul, because everyone's going to have an opinion about what your life should look like, and only you know what is authentic and true to what you were called to do and be.
I love that.
I don't think I've said this before, but I almost feel like you shouldn't tell younger Misty anything because you've turned out so spectacular in what you've done. And I'm so enamored by everything you've accomplished and your aura and your personality. And I'm just so enamored by you. So I think you shouldn't tell you. Don't change anything. Just don't.
I know. And I want to give younger Misty a big hug. And I feel like this has been an emotional interview for me. So I want to thank you for that. I've been like pushing back the tears the whole time, and I don't get like this often.
I love you, Sharon. I
don't
love
get
you,
like
Sharon.
this often.
I want to hug you too.
I know. So younger Misty, you're going to be okay.
Thank you. Same for you, younger Sharon. You're also going to be okay.
You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
better than okay.
Better than okay. And therapy helps.
And therapy does help.
And free hugs from friends.
Free hugs from friends do help. I agree. Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
It has been. Thank you so much for coming all the way down to Sarasota. We really appreciate you being here. So, and now we say to our listeners,
peace out, Girl Scout.
Peace out, friends.
Nice.